first memory I have of Island Eddy is in 1966. I remember Galway were going well in the football, and when we arrived out on the island with Tom Condon and Mary Birmingham, all I remember is the whole island seemed to be covered in sheep's wool, which actually turned out to be carrageen. That time people used to pick an awful lot of carrageen and they used to dry it on the grass and turn it, and then it would bleach in the white rain, and then they would gather it and sell it, and it was a big commodity, and that's how they made an awful lot of money in the summertime. And that's my very first memory of looking at all these areas of white carrageen on the grass in Island Eddy. Fascinating. The island has 7 families originally, and there was 3 Birminghams, 2 Condons and 2 Canes. I guess originally there was only 1 Birmingham and there was 2 other families in there. The 2 men from the house were actually drowned coming back from Galway on a day shopping, and my 2 great-granduncles married the 2 widows. Hence there became 3 families of Birminghams. And then my grandaunt married into Condons. So we were all connected to the Condons and the Birminghams, and it was amazing that most of the families in the island were all interrelated to one another over the years, even going back generations before that. And my mother, who was the last woman alive from the island, she's 93 now. She was born in 1927, so she left the island when she was about 19, went to England for a couple of years in more troubled times, and it wasn't easy for them at that time, and then she came back and was back in the island. But I think they were more wealthy and more healthy than the people on the mainland. There had lots of ways of making money that the people on the mainland had, with fishing and seaweed and the carrageen and the periwinkles. But they had lovely times. They were very happy times, but of course the sadness was that there was so many people in every house that there wasn't enough justification and money to keep them all going. So an awful lot of them immigrated to America. They did a lot of fishing, and a lot of herring fishing in the winter time, and oyster fishing was part of their daily livelihood, and every inch of the island was tilled that was inside the walls, and the animals lived always outside the walls in the commonage area. So you can imagine all the product that they were producing on the island every year. I think they were quite wealthy. Reservoir was around at the time, and they certainly had a lot of vegetables, and with all that land tilled, and everybody was always saying that the produce that came from Island Eddy was always met the best prices at market, and that was a known fact for years. The last 2 on the island were John and Mary Birmingham, and John moved out to Ireland and Mary moved to Parkmore. It was kind of must be very sad for them to leave the island at the time in the early 80s, and I guess they didn't have a choice. They were getting old and it wasn't easy, and eventually Mary was going in and out. She was staying in the house, and she was staying in the house, and I lived in the house in Parkmore, and one day she got a stroke, and luckily enough a local fisherman went in and found her and brought her out and took her to hospital, but she didn't live too much longer after that. Sad ending to a great life. Bad was the last of Ghana. He died in 1969. They were fantastic people. They were fantastic. I knew them extremely well now. The graveyard on Island Eddy is kind of symbolic. It's a children's burial ground. I've an aunt buried in it, Winifred Birmingham. She only lived 21 days, I think, about 21 days. She was quite young. But there's one adult grave. Well, if an adult, it's Eliza Murphy. And when I was young and staying with Mary Birmingham, I remember lifting up the headstone, and because I was just curious, because it was lying flat, and it stood up and has been standing ever since. And I asked her about Eliza Murphy, and she said it was the captain's daughter of a schooner that was visiting Kinvara at the time, and the daughter had died a few days previously. And he came in and asked the people of the island would it be okay if he buried his daughter, and of course they readily agreed. And he came back afterwards and laid the headstone. Now that's the story that I was told, and it's the story I believe. There might be other stories out there, I'm not sure, but I think that's pretty factual, because it sounds like what could have happened in the end. The schooners weren't visiting at that time. But the funny thing is there's only 2 headstones in it that people would know about, because one is we've been erected recently by my mother and her brother, and the other one is Rise Murphy. But in actual fact, every stone that's on the graveyard represents a grave, and they're only ordinary stones that took off the wall because I suppose they had the facilities to go and making their engraving names on them. So they were just marked with stones, and it's kind of sad. I've cleaned it all up in recent years, and I've never touched any of the stones, and I've left them as sacred as they. But we're hoping to put up a cross and maybe put some more names on it in the future. But it would be nice to remember the people that have gone to. Yeah, well, it was always my dream to go back to the island, and because I'm fascinated by it and I absolutely adore the place. So about 10 years ago, I decided to start looking at the feasibilities, and we decided to go with the original house, because at that time it had a roof on it, and although it was in a bad state of repair. And since that we've been adding bits to it as we go along every year, a few more euros go into it, a few more euros. It's an extremely difficult project, but we're really happy with it. And this year we moved out on the week before lockdown, and we've been out there since basically. And then I had my machine out there, and we kind of tilled it and sowed maybe 30 different types of crops, and it's fascinating. The results were spectacular, to say the least, and we really love now having all our own vegetables. It's just fascinating, especially giving potatoes from Island Eddy to friends and family. It's just, and they're fabulous, they really are. So it's nice to go back. I guess it was 75 years ago it was tilled. That's a hell of a long time. I want to believe that time passes so quickly. I never seen any tillage on Island Eddy. Nothing, absolutely nothing. All on the animals, sheep. And now it's great to see it growing up again, and a bit of life coming back. And please God, we'll have better days again in the future when this crazy virus disappears from our shores. It's kind of sad, I guess, the island the way it is at the moment. It is very sad. It's sad for me to see all the old ruined and derelict buildings. It's really horrific when you think of all the people that lived there. And I'd love to see it restored and brought back to what it was originally, but that's a mammoth task, and I don't think we're going to see it in our lifetime. But hopefully sometime the houses will be restored. The future of the island, I don't know. I think it'll just be, used as sheep farming, and a few of the locals could see me there now, which is great to see them making a few euros out of it. But people like the modern comforts of the mainland. I think you have to be born with an affection to the sea and a love of the island to actually live out there, because people would find it remote and barren, and I find it quite the opposite. So I find it paradise, and we're so lucky to be associated with it. And long may it continue, I hope.